In the previous class, we learned about the code structure in Python. In this class, we will learn about basic input and output, with some hands-on programs. This is the shell window in idle. Let us start with a new file. You must have noticed that whenever we start idle, this shell window opens. But to write our programs first, we need this code editor. You can change the default behavior. For that, go to Options, then Configure Idle, and switch over to the General tab. Under the Startup option, select Open Edit Window, instead of Shell Window, and then click on OK. Now whenever you start idle, it will by default open this code editor first. So, from our Hello World example, we already know about the print command. Let us write one welcome message using print. We will say print. Welcome to Python. This print over here is actually a built-in function in Python. We will discuss about functions in a later class. You need little more knowledge about coding before that. But for now, you can just assume that a function is a feature that performs some job for you. Here, print is a function that writes something in the output. Let us now ask for a city. We will say print. Then enter a city name and bracket close. This will prompt the user to enter a city name. We will read that input with another function called input. So after this sentence, write input. Please remember, a function must always have a parenthesis. It can be a blank parenthesis, but we cannot omit it. A parenthesis tells us that it is a function. Now that we have the user input, let us use that city name in a sentence. We will say print. I love to go to. Then we want to use the name of the city that the user has entered. From within this print statement, we want to access the value received by the input statement. So, we need to store that value somewhere. A variable is used for exactly this purpose. We will add a variable name here. Say, city. This equal to sign does not mean that city and input are the same thing. This equal to sign is an operator, called assignment operator. It has a different meaning not just in Python, but in any programming language. When we say x equals to y, the assignment operator copies the value of y to x. If we say x equals to a minus b plus c, the assignment operator will first evaluate the expression on the right-hand side, and then assign that result to the left-hand side object. So, you can understand that a statement in the reverse order is meaningless, it will throw an error. On the left-hand side, you can only have a variable. But on the right-hand side, you can have a variable, a constant, an expression, or a function that returns a value. Back to our code, we assign the value returned by the input function to a variable called city. It will store whatever the user types in. Then, we will use this variable in our print statement. Print will automatically add these two parts together and print a single sentence in the output. In place of city, it will display the actual value that it contains because it is a variable. Instead of this, if we say city within quotes, either single quotes or double quotes, it will display this word itself, city. But if we remove the quotes, it will be treated as a variable, so its value will be displayed. Okay, let us now run our code. Before that, we have to first save this file. Let us save it on desktop itself as test.py. Now, run the code from this menu option. Cool. We have the output here. We will resize and reposition these windows little bit, so that we can see them side by side, the code and the output. This line is displayed here. And then the second line is displayed. After that, we have an input statement, so the computer is waiting for user input. Let us enter a city, New York, and enter. It displayed, I love to go to New York. It has combined these two parts, replaced city with whatever the user typed in, New York, and displayed this output sentence. Okay. Let us run this once more. Enter a city name. We will enter something different. Paris. So, I love to go to Paris. We will now write another program. Instead of a name, this time we will take a number input. So let us delete these two lines. As we want to take a number input, let us ask the user to enter a number in place of the city. And we will store this number in a variable, let us say a variable by name value. Value equals to input, do not forget the brackets. So whatever the user enters will be assigned and stored in this variable. We will now calculate the previous and the next numbers. So previous equals to value minus 1. Simple. Then next equals to value plus 1. In this program, we are making a series of numbers. The previous and the next numbers will be calculated and stored in these two new variables. You can notice that the name next has a different color, like the function input, so you get a hint that it is some keyword or built-in function name. We should not use it for our variable. Let us change this name. As per Python coding standard, it should be named as next_number. But personally, I prefer to use a camel case style. Whatever style you follow, keep it consistent in all places. So we will change this to prev_num. Now, we got the series. We will print these three values in an ascending order. Print. Let us add a message. The series is. Then comma. Then first we will display the previous number. prev_num. Then comma. Then the original number, that is, value. And finally, the next num. Please be careful that the variable name should match exactly with what we declared earlier. The lowercase or the uppercase should be same as the original name. For example, if we change it to a lowercase, Python will throw an error that this variable is undefined. It should have a capital N. Let us now save the file. Then go to Run and run this program. We get the welcome message as before, and it says, enter a number. So, let us enter here, 50, and enter. And boom! We get an error message. It gives some error information as well. It says line number 8, then an error description, unsupported operand type for str and int. Let us check this line number. We have to first enable the line numbers. So, go to Options, then enable this Show Line Numbers. These line numbers help us during debugging and error check. We can see that, at line number 8, we have an assignment statement. Value -1 is being assigned to prev_num. But if you read this error message carefully, you will get a hint that the source of the error is not at this statement, but it is actually at the previous line, where we are trying to get the input. To understand why this error is being raised, we have to first understand the concept of a data type. When we create a variable or assign some data to a variable, it gets a particular character. There are two major groups in Python. If we store some alphabetic values, like a name, it is called a string variable. The abbreviated form is str. It can then store only alphabetic values. If a variable stores some numeric data, or just numbers, we call it an integer. The abbreviated form is int. This string or integer types are called the data type. The rule is, we cannot mix them up. A string type variable cannot contain a numeric data, and an integer data type cannot contain strings. There are few more data types as well. We have float, which stores decimal or fractional values. Then we have bool, which stores a special value of true or false. There are even more data types available in Python. We will learn about them later. So, back to our code. If the user types in a number, the input function still treats it as alphanumeric, and assigns a string object to the value field. You cannot do numeric operations like plus minus on an alphabetic data. We need a numeric data in the value field. So, we have to use another function called int. This technique is known as typecasting. We are changing the data type of some data. We receive a string from the input function, which then gets converted to a numeric integer data by this int function. This will work only if the user actually types in a number. The int function will convert it to a numeric data, and that gets assigned to the value field, so it becomes an integer object. We can then do numeric operations on that. It should not give any error. Let us now save this file. Then, we will run this code. It is asking for a number. Let us enter 50. And here is the series, 49, 50, and 51. Perfect. Let us now look at another example. It will help if you try these examples hands-on on your computer as well. So, this program takes two input values instead of one. it prints a line asking for a number. Then the input value is stored in a variable. Then another number is taken from the user and saved in another variable. Finally, their product is calculated by multiplying two input values, and the result is printed in the output through another third variable. Simple. We will now run this code. Here, for the first number, let us enter 12. And for the second number, we will go with 5. And boom! We get an error again. Actually, I deliberately kept this error to once again remind you of the data type concept we just learned. Let us take a look at our code. We have this input function to read the number. And we know that input function always returns a string, not a numeric data. It treats even the digits as alphabets. So we have to typecast the input into integer data type, using the int function as in our last example. Now this should be fine. Let us save it. And then run. Enter the first number 12. Enter the second number 5. Yes, now it returned the correct answer, which is 60. That's nice. So, in this class, we learned about the input function that reads user's input, and the print function that displays an output. We also learned about string and integer data types. In the next class, we will learn about conditional statements in Python, also popularly known as if-else. You can try the exercises given below. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel.